Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first session of the MARA Mastery Series. Great to have you here if you're listening live. This is a new webinar series that we're starting to give you a more detailed overview of MARA. Currently, we have 4 sessions planned, both in German and English, to go into topic blocks and show you the most relevant features on MARA as a little refresher, or if you're new to MARA, as an intro to the tool, to make sure that you're aware of all new features that we might have and that you're using MARA as efficiently as possible. Tobi's also here with me, but today it's mainly going to be me guiding through the inbox. So this session is about the inbox and how to reply to reviews with MARA, everything that's related to that, all the settings and setup steps. I'm just going to share my screen in a second and just go through the tool just real quick. There is a comment section on the side where you can ask questions anytime. I'm not going to look into that throughout the webinar, but Tobi might be able to answer some questions on the go, but there's also going to be some time in the end if there are questions that we need to address, and then we can clarify anything that you might want to ask. So feel free to really just ask anything in there. All right. Otherwise, I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Perfect. All right, I'm going to start by going through some of the setup steps and settings that are related to your inbox and your replies to make sure everything is set up correctly and as efficiently as possible so that you can smoothly reply to all your reviews from within MARA. And then in the second part, I'm going to go into more detail about the inbox itself, how to send replies, how to edit your replies, and how to use the inbox in your everyday workflow. So first of all, if you log in, you're always going to see the inbox. It's your central place where all the reviews come in. And that's already the first thing to make sure that all reviews that you want to answer from all relevant platforms run into your inbox. You need to double check or verify that all relevant review sources are connected to MARA. And this is something you can do as an account or property admin directly in the account settings down here. This is the property tab, and here you see all your properties. This is an example account with example properties, but you're going to see the same in your account. And if you click on a property picture, you see the listings, and this is the base of what runs into your inbox. So all listings that are connected here will be scraped. So that's where we gather the reviews from, and it's important to double check that those are all relevant listings that you need. You can click on this little link here to see the listing. So if anything changed about your listing, for example, it makes sense to double check if that's still the correct listing, and also make sure that nothing is missing here. So for example, in this property, you could click on add another listing to see what other listings you could still add. Just scroll down a little bit and then add another listing. And here you can see the platforms that you could theoretically connect in addition to the ones that are already connected. And if you want to connect that, just click on it and add the URL. If you have any platform where you receive reviews that is not yet connected, but also not shown in this list, let us know. We're happy to hear what platforms are relevant for you. And we have a list of potential platforms that need to be connected to MARA, but we only add them if they are relevant sources of reviews for multiple customers, but feel free to always share that. And of course, if there's any source that you don't want to have in here, for example, if you say we don't reply to trip.com and it's not relevant for us at all, we can also remove that. Just contact our support, but make sure that the source list is complete and everything that you want to have in MARA runs into MARA. And then in addition, for some of these platforms, we have direct integrations, meaning that you can connect your extranet with MARA, allowing you to send replies directly from your inbox without any additional step. And this is Expedia, Booking, Google, and TripAdvisor. And to do that, you can go to the OTA integrations tab. And here again, that's something the admins need to do in the account just making sure that all these platforms have a little green check mark in here, showing you that the integration is active and that anyone using the inbox can send replies directly to these platforms. This is a very straightforward process. There's also a detailed explanation of that linked here, but basically you just need to click on add integration for each of those platforms, then follow the integration steps to connect all your listings. For Booking and Google, this can be done centrally. If you have a central admin account and multiple properties, you don't need to do that for every single property. It can be done all in once. For TripAdvisor and Expedia, it needs to be done per property. But once this is set up by an admin, everyone in the account can send out replies directly from the inbox. There is also the possibility to connect your tech stack integrations, which is PMS and ticketing integrations. I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail because we will have a separate session on that. But when it comes to answering and your inbox, just so that you've heard of it, if the PMS integration is active here, that will also show you additional data in the inbox, stuff like the room number, the reservation ID of your guest, and you will be able to see more details in the inbox with an active integration here. But connecting all your listings in the property screen and then making sure the integrations are active is like the base to start answering from within the inbox. And then you will see that all the reviews from the different platforms run into MARA. We update the inbox daily, meaning that from all platforms, every morning at around 4, we look for new reviews and also update the reply status of existing reviews. So if you log in the morning, everything will be updated and you can see the reviews in here. And as you can see now in this preview already, there is little draft symbols here next to each review, meaning that MARA has already pre-generated response drafts for every new review that has come in. This is the default setting for newer properties. So every new review directly comes with a reply proposal, but you can activate this setting. You can also change the setting. And if you have an older account, this might not be set up per default. So I'm quickly going to show you how to define the automation rules in your account, because you also have the possibility to fully automate certain replies if you want that. And you have the automation feature here. And in this screen, you can see there is a rule already existing that for all properties in the account, there will be drafts pre-generated for all platforms, all reviews, 0 to 5 stars, with or without text. And when you log in, you will have the reply drafts ready for you. If that's not set up in your account, we definitely recommend that, because it just makes the workflow more smooth, because you don't need to generate a reply for a new review. And it's already there. You just need to check and send it out. In addition to that, you can always edit the rule here. This is also an admin setting, so not every user can do that, but property and account admins can. And in addition, there is, as said, the possibility, if you say we also want to automate positive reviews, for example, and do not need to check the answers anymore because we're confident that the MARA replies work very well for us, you can add additional rules here to fully automate certain replies, which just saves you a ton of time, especially if you get a lot of reviews for your properties. The default is this setting down here. Only account admins can change that. Only positive reviews can be fully automated. So this means anything 4 stars or above on a 5-point scale. If you want to allow lower reviews, the account admin would need to change that. But to add a rule, you just click on create new automation rule. You give it a name, and then you would need to select publish response automatically. This can only be selected if the OTA integration is active. So if direct sending to Booking, Google, TripAdvisor, and Expedia is possible, of course. And you select this mode, and you define for which reviews you want to allow that. For example, you could say I only want Google reviews without text, only 4 and 5 stars to be fully automated. And then you can activate the rule, and then from the next day onwards, those reviews will be responded to without you having to manually check the replies. But this is something that can save you a ton of time, but we only recommend doing that once you have gotten familiar with the replies that MARA generates, and you're happy with the tone of the replies and they match what you want to publish, of course. And that already brings me to the last kind of setting point that you can look at in the inbox, which is the reply settings. They define basically what kind of replies you get in MARA and what they look like. So for example, in this account, we have Theory as a demo property, and here you can see a lot of smileys in the response. They have a very like casual tone, which is maybe not what your property sounds like when answering. And to make sure that those reply drafts you get here exactly match your tone and your style of writing and include all the relevant information, so that you ideally don't need to change anything and just send it out as it is. You need to check the reply settings. It's important to know that the reply settings are always on a property level. So the property selected here is what everything below refers to. So if you change anything about the tone, the AI version or anything, that's gonna be for this whole property. So not just for you as a user, but also not for all properties in the account if it's a multi-property account. And also these settings can be edited by any user, everyone, property admins, account admins, and also replier. So if you're a property admin and you say you want to centrally define these settings, but you don't want repliers to change anything about that, you can make sure that they have a user role, which is replier with a little addition, not allowing them to access these settings, just so that you're aware that theoretically anyone who has replier rights can also access and edit these settings, unless you remove that right from them. Then you have the signature here, which is the only setting in the reply settings that is on a user level. So every user theoretically can add a signature, which is only added to the reply if they generate a reply manually. If you have the drafts, MARA will use the signature of the highest user role. So if you're an admin and there is a team behind you, it makes sense to add a general team signature. And then this will be used in all reply drafts. If there is no signature, MARA will also, especially with the brand voice, just use a general signature for the hotel without any personal names. But if you want a personal signature, you can of course add that here. But more importantly is the AI version setting and the smart snippets when it comes to making sure that your replies sound just like you wrote them. When the AI version setting is set to brand voice, this means this is your individual brand voice, but we will start with the MARA AI, which is our standard AI. So this is the same version for every property that uses MARA. We control that, we have set it up, and it's following best practices. It's a standard brand voice basically to answer to hotel reviews. And you just have the option to define the length of the replies and the tone of voice. So you can say, I want it to be very casual, formal, or business casual, and business casual is a little in between. So it's in languages like German, for example, using an informal addressing of the guest, but still it's not as casual as the casual tone. So there are just 3 different levels of casuality, basically. And this works for a lot of hotels that just have a standard tone, especially the formal setting is something a lot of our customers use. But as soon as you see the reply drafts, and you can also test that out with the MARA AI, and you say there are certain things that you want to change about the reply, maybe you use a different addressing of the guest, maybe you just address them by their last name or their first name, maybe you want a different kind of tone in there, some emojis or something like that, or you already have a brand voice that you use in previous replies and you want MARA to sound more like that, then you can activate the brand voice. And the brand voice is set up based on your previous responses. So once your property was created in MARA, we check for your previous replies and generate guidelines on how you reply, and the AI will adapt to that. Meaning that when the brand voice is active, ideally your responses should sound like you wrote them, but you have the possibility to adjust that. And you can also, of course, create a brand voice from scratch. If you say, in the past, we didn't really reply with any like guidelines or just with templates maybe, and we want to change that, you can still like create a new brand voice, and there is this customized brand voice button. This is more like an advanced setting step, I'd say. So I don't recommend just changing random stuff in there and really like testing it, because it impacts the quality of your replies. But if you go there, you can really define how the AI should respond. So there are general tone policy guidelines. You can define how to address the guest. You can also define brand terms. For example, in this case, there are maybe certain words that are used in line with the brand's tone. You can also add forbidden terms, things you never use in your responses. Emojis, as I just said. Something that is oftentimes adjusted is the greeting, so how you want to address your guests in the beginning. So here you can really fine-tune everything you need. And you can also say, especially if you didn't respond in your brand's voice in the past and maybe just used templates or didn't reply at all, you could deactivate this in the beginning, because that means that MARA will always, when generating a new reply, using this guidelines, but also looking at replies from like the last couple of weeks to see if anything changed about your tone, and this will impact the response tone as well. So if you deactivate that, it will only listen to the guidelines and not look as past reply examples. And then important to always save that if you change something. But here you really have the possibility to make sure that the responses are very much in line with how you want them to sound. And it makes sense to really fine-tune that if you have the feeling there is stuff that you are always like editing, little things in the tone that you don't always like. We're also happy to support with that if you have any questions, but you can customize that yourself here. And as I said, the brand voice learns a little bit how you write, how things change in your responses, but it doesn't adapt or learn about topics that come up in your review. So it doesn't learn how you respond to certain things unless you explicitly put it in your brand voice guidelines. For that, we have the smart snippets. So the smart snippets are like mini templates. It's a library where you can tell the AI how you respond or how you want certain topics to be addressed. And that makes sense for topics that come up often in your reviews. That can be things that are special about your hotel concept, things that guests oftentimes misunderstand or criticize, and you want to clarify that in your responses. But it can also be positive things that you want to highlight about your property or your concept. And the AI will then, whenever a smart snippet topic is present in a review, automatically detect that and include your information that is saved here in the response, but in a very natural way. It doesn't just copy paste your template, it just includes the information and rephrases it in every reply. That can be stuff like here, no air conditioning in the room, and then it's just an explanation that it's not possible for you to install air conditioning. It can also be stuff people always complaining that there was no parking in front of the hotel, but actually there is a parking lot maybe 1 street away that guests can use, and you just want to highlight that in the reply for maybe potential future guests. And you can create those snippets here. So you just go to the very bottom and click on Add Snippet. And then you add your snippet topic and the information you want to include. And the only important thing is that the topic you add is very specific, so that it's clear for the AI when to use it. So just putting parking doesn't really help, because then the AI will use the snippet in any review that is mentioning the parking at all, positive or negative. So no parking, or something like excessive room heat, lack of privacy, stuff like that is specific enough for the AI to detect it. You don't need to add a ton of words, different wordings for the same thing. The AI will just understand the topic, and whenever the guest mentions that in any kind of wording, it will detect it, and then it will include the information. You can then add the information here. It doesn't need to be a fully written response. Just a couple of 1 or 2 sentences are enough. Just the information that is relevant in this context. As I said, MARA will just rephrase it and make it natural in the reply flow. You can, as you see here, add snippets in any language you want. So you can add it in English, in German, in French. Just important that the topic and the reply part are in the same language, but then MARA will use that in the response language in every review. You will see whenever a snippet is detected, there will be a little tag in your inbox where it says smart snippet detected. So you also see whenever a snippet was used, and you can then have all this information in your replies without having to edit that manually all the time. This can also be positive things, as I said. So for example, if you, I don't know, have live cooking at your breakfast buffet, and whenever someone mentions the delicious breakfast, you want to highlight that in the reply, you can also add a snippet for that. That can also be used for SEO optimization. For example, mentioning specific sites close by whenever the good location is mentioned, anything you can think of. MARA also proposes use smart snippets from time to time. So just that you've seen that when you log into your inbox, sometimes this pop-up appears. This happens whenever our AI has noticed that there was a topic that came up multiple times in the past couple of weeks, and you always had a certain way of replying to it. And then MARA suggests you, maybe you want to add that to your collection of smart snippets. It makes sense to really like check those snippets, so not just accepting all of them, because maybe you have a snippet for a similar topic already, as like there might be some overlap, the detection might get worse. It's not good to just add more snippets just for the sake of adding more snippets. So really make sure that you check them before editing. You can also edit them, but something like this, for example, no cleaning service, and then there is a specific policy explained here, might make sense. Then you can just activate it and create it, or you can decline the snippets that are suggested. These snippets are also on the property level, as you can see here, and as I mentioned, so just for the specific property. If you have a multi-property account and there are topics that are relevant for all your properties and you want to add them to all of them, you can, of course, just create property snippets in every property, but you can also create account snippets as an account admin, of course. They look like that for the property then. They cannot be edited by the user here, but they can be deactivated if they are not relevant for individual properties. This makes sense if there are central topics that you want to add to all properties. It can be done here again in the account settings under account AI. It's the same logic. You just add the templates here and they will be shown in every property, and they cannot be edited by anyone in the property unless you go here and you're an account admin. And with the brand voice and the smart snippets, you really make sure that your replies sound custom, that they are relevant for your property, that you don't need to edit as much anymore. So especially with the smart snippets and creating a good list of smart snippets, you have a very good base for your reply draft then. And the last setting I want to show you before going back to the inbox is the language. So the default is that MARA replies in the language of your guest. So for every review, you will get a draft in the language of the review. So Spanish will be answered in Spanish and so on. If you say our property doesn't want to answer in the guest language, we just speak English and German, for example, then you can add those languages here. And that means that English, you wouldn't even need to add English, but just to show you that English is going to be answered in English, German is going to be answered in German, and everything else is also going to be answered in English. And you can define that individually however you need it. I will also show you in a second that you do get translations for every review, but also for every reply, and you will be able to also work in the translation, so you really know what you're publishing, also when answering in languages you're maybe not fluent in or you don't speak at all. But this can be done here. And lastly, the reviews without text, so just ratings on Google, for example, they will per default always be answered in English. But if you say we always want to answer them in Spanish, you could change that here as well. But English is, I think, the best setting, as you might not know what language this guest spoke. and with the connection of all listings, the OTA integrations, and then the reply settings, you're basically good to go and can start answering from your inbox. And I will now show you how you can do that and how you can really use the inbox. So as I mentioned, you have the preview of all the reviews here on the left. You can click on any review to see the review in more detail. You always have the little icon showing you what platform the review came from, the rating on a 5-point scale. You can always activate a translation. So if you don't speak the language of the guest, you can select your preferred language, the language you're most comfortable in here, and then just activate the toggle and it will translate the review for you. And then below, that's also what I mentioned in the beginning, is the reservation data. This is only visible for Booking and Expedia reviews if you have an active PMS integration, but then you see stuff like the reservation ID, the room number, rate, and so on here as well. If your booking integration is active, you can also click on this little icon up here and it directly brings you to the reservation of this guest and booking. That might also be helpful from time to time. And you have a little share button here to share the review via email with anyone you need to share it with. And then to work efficiently in the inbox, you can also set certain filters up here. So you can make sure that the inbox only shows you the stuff that's relevant for you. You can filter by date, by property if you are working in a multi-property setting, the source. But more importantly, I think, are those two filters. Important to understand is this show only reviews that can be replied filter. This is active by default. So by default, we only show you those reviews in the inbox that you can actually reply to, because that's the point of the inbox. But there are reviews that come into MARA that are also counted in your analytics, in your, I don't know, rating, but that you cannot reply to. And this is booking reviews without text, because Booking doesn't allow responses to those. Or if you have surveys set up in MARA and they come in anonymously, so without any email, you cannot reply to them, and they will also be filtered out with this filter. And then you have the reply status. So you can filter by the status of your reviews. And I think a helpful one is the not done filter. If you're working in the inbox and just answering all reviews, the not done filter only shows you the reviews that have not been answered at all. So this is like your to-do list. If you activate that and you send out a reply, this review will be removed from your list and you will not see it anymore. So this is very helpful to just go through open reviews. Opposed to that, the not published filter shows you all reviews where no publicly visible response has been detected by MARA yet. This means all reviews that are not done, so all the reviews that you have not answered at all, plus reviews where you might have sent an answer already, and the answer is in the extranet of the platform, but it's not yet publicly visible. And this is relevant because Booking and Expedia do not publish reviews immediately. They are in the extranet immediately if you send them out via MARA, but they need to be verified by the platform first. So if you send a reply from your inbox, it will be checked and it shows that it's answered via MARA, but it's not yet visible for the guest. And this is what you can see under this not published filter. And all reviews that are shown when you filter for not published are also the reviews that are not yet counted as answered when it comes to your response rate. Because in our response rate, only the reviews count as answered where the guest and potential other guests can actually see a reply on the platform listing publicly. And filtering that sometimes helps to check which reviews are still open, maybe still pending in the extranet. That might take like 1 or 2 days on average until they are published. And once the answer is published, we update the reply status and they will be checked in the inbox and removed from the not published list as well. The reply status can also be seen here in the inbox. This is the draft status, so an unanswered review. And then if a review has been published, this looks like this. You have this little circle with a check mark, and you can also see the published reply here, the ones that we found on the platform. And when a reply has the status published, then the review also counts as answered in the response rate, which is why it makes sense to not check your response rate immediately after answering all your reviews, because for Booking and Expedia, there is a delay and the response rate will not go up to 100% immediately, even if you have answered all your reviews. And that might take 1 or 2 days. So we always recommend waiting like 3 or 4 days before checking the response rate for example, the previous month. So when it comes to actually sending out the replies, you can select the review that you want to answer. Then as said, you have the preview here and you have your reply draft down here. And this is always what's going to be sent out. So the text in this reply field is what will be sent if you click on send down here. I will show you that in a second. But you can edit the reply draft directly in here. So if you want to change just minor things, you can just do that. Just type in here. Or if you have input for the AI, so maybe you like the draft already, but maybe you have some information about the guest that the AI could know, like maybe you gave the guest a late checkout or stuff like that. Or you just want to change little things, you can provide input down here to customize. And then you just click on this arrow here, and then MARA will update the existing reply and add the information that you edited in this field. If you don't like the reply at all, you can click on generate reply down here, or if it's an empty reply field in the beginning because no draft was there yet, you can also click on generate reply to just create a new response. And as you can see down here, if you change something, you always get a version history down here, so you never lose the initial reply and also don't lose your changes. You can always go back and forth, and whatever is visible here, so if I go back to the first version maybe, and I would send it out now, this is what would be sent to Booking in this case. If you don't speak the language of the guest, maybe we can select this German review here. You can activate the translation, as I said in the beginning, to get a translation of the review itself. But if you have selected English here, for example, and the review reply is in German, you will always get a translation in English below the reply draft. And you can also not just check the reply draft to understand what the suggestion is, but you can also make changes directly in your preferred language. So you could change anything in the English version, and then this little update reply button will appear. And if you click on it, the changes you made in the translation will be transferred in the original reply language, and you can send this out to your guest even though you don't speak the guest language. So this is how you can manually adjust replies. As said, you shouldn't need to do as many changes, hopefully. So if there is a lot of stuff you need to change, go back to your reply settings maybe and check if the AI version doesn't match yet, or if there are any smart snippets you can add. But you can, of course, edit stuff here anytime. And then once you're satisfied with the reply, you can send it out directly for Booking, Google, Expedia, and TripAdvisor if the integration is active. You will then just see a send button here. So as this is a demo account, we don't have it in here, but this would be the send button. You click send, and the reply will be directly in the Booking extranet. Also, the reply status will update. It will then show a little check mark and the addition sent via MARA, which means that the reply has been sent out directly from within MARA. And then, as I explained, as soon as we find the reply published also on the listing page publicly, this will be updated to published a day or two later. And then there are platforms that are not directly integrated. So for example, Holiday Check, I think there is an Airbnb review in here to show you that and how to answer to those. So for platforms that are not directly integrated, you just see the copy and open button. And what happens here, if you have a reply ready and you click copy and open, it will copy the reply to your clipboard and open, in this case, Airbnb in a new tab, ideally as close as possible to where you can publish the reply. This differs a bit per platform, then you can manually paste and publish the reply on Airbnb in this case, or on the other platforms. And once the reply has been published there, the next day MARA will find the published reply and also update the reply status to response published here. But if in the meantime you want to remove this review from your not done list, for example, or if you're multiple people working in the same inbox and you just want to show others that you've worked on this already, you have this mark as answered button. This is just to internally check the review as done. This doesn't do anything. It's not relevant when it comes to the response rate. This doesn't mean that there's actually a reply published. As you can see, I just checkmarked it now. And you can also redo that anytime, but this can help you to keep track of the reviews that you've worked on. But for those platforms that are not directly integrated, you manually need to publish the replies via the copy and open button. And lastly, you might also want to answer to surveys. If you have surveys set up in MARA, this is also going to be a topic in a separate webinar, but I'm just going to really quick show you how to answer to those, because this is also relevant when it comes to answering. So I'm going to filter the inbox for surveys now. So the MARA surveys, if you have them set up in your account and you get a feedback via your survey, it looks like this. There's this little MARA icon in here. And then same as for the other reviews from the OTAs, you get a reply draft. And then you have two options. This is super new, so we will just bring that live next week latest, and you will also get an update email. But you now have two options on how to answer to your surveys. One is the copy and mail button. This opens a pop-up in your Outlook with the reply draft in there already. There is the subject of the email is filled already. The email address is already inserted, and you can just send it out via your own email account, so using your own email address as well. And then you would need to click mark as answered again to tell us that you've answered it. But there now is also the possibility to send the reply via mail directly from your inbox. So if you click this, there will be an email sent directly to the email address of the guest using a general MARA email. And the guest will receive this reply via our email, and you can just send it out from here, not needing to do anything in Outlook. And with that, I think we've covered all the relevant stuff when it comes to answering to reviews, and would have time for some questions now. I don't know if Tobi has answered anything in the chat yet, if there were any questions, but I think most importantly is the setup. So connecting your platforms, making sure the OTA integrations are active, double checking your automation settings, that you get the drafts for all reviews that come in, and maybe some reviews should be answered fully automated, and making sure that your brand voice is set up if you want to have one, and your smart snippets are in place, and then you're good to go answering all your reviews directly from within MARA. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Paula. So right now there haven't been any questions submitted. So to the audience, when you have any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, all of you will receive the recording automatically. Feel free to share this with your colleagues internally. We'll also publish them at some point. But yeah, if there's any open question that hasn't been answered when it comes to responding to reviews, now's the time. And we'll probably wait a few more seconds to see if anyone of you has some open questions.
Otherwise, just a reminder that next week we're going to have the next session already. It's going to be on analytics, so how MARA analyzes your reviews, how you can create reports using the AI assistant. So feel free to sign up for that as well to not miss out on any of our sessions. But yeah, if there are no questions yet, of course, if anything comes to your mind afterwards, also feel free to reach out. And then thanks a lot for attending, and see you probably next week.